Have you ever wondered how your sales performance compares against your competitors and peers? The B2B Sales Benchmark Report provides the definitive guide to what success looks like in 2021. See how you compare in terms of win rate, sales cycle, average deal value, relationships, and engagement. You can see the results and get the full report at ebster.com/B2B-sales-benchmarks. This is Sales Ops Demystified, the #1 most downloaded podcast in sales operations. We invite the brightest minds in sales operations onto the show to deconstruct the why, what, and how behind rep productivity, forecasting, metrics, and all things revenue. This podcast is brought to you by Ebster, the leading customer engagement platform for Salesforce. Welcome to another very special episode of the Sales Ops Demystified podcast. We are joined by Mo Miller, and I'm super excited to have Mo on today because Mo actually has a background in sales. And I would say about 50% of the people we have on the podcast do and 50% don't. And I always love getting people's insights when they've actually been on the front line. It's normally a very interesting conversation. So Mo, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be on.
Let's kick off with the first question. How did you first get into sales ops? Because I know that you had extensive experience actually selling, and then it seems like you shifted over in the last 3 years or so at SimpleNexus. So tell us the story.
Yeah, so I've been in a true sales operations role for the past 3 years or so. 1 year at SimpleNexus and 2 years, a little over 2 years before that at Canopy. And so overall, as a sales operations manager, and then now as a director of sales operations, coming up on 3.5 years in total tenure in that role. But with that said, I also spent time in a startup right out of college. So jumped in, got my feet wet. My first official, salaried job after, working to put myself through school was in a startup called Zang. So in that startup, wore tons of different hats. Business development is kind of the overarching thing, but everything from initially getting my boots on the ground and being the first non-developer. We had 2.5 developers there at Zang that we had access to. It was purchased idea by a larger holding company, and they basically bought a side project from their developers. So with that in mind, there was not actually a product to go to market with. We went through a rebrand. I was a project manager, got things up and running, built out the sales process, built out the collateral, built out the pitch, and really in 3 to 6 months time, we went to market, started to sell, and then eventually hired a few people on my team to build that out and to start selling. And what I didn't know is that I was doing sales operations, but really just was wearing a lot of different hats and didn't really get a focus on that operational side of things that I really liked because, we had to start just selling and get up and running. So long story short, eventually Facebook shut us down for privacy concerns and the changes with privacy in Facebook, and we didn't keep up with some of the demands that they had from a privacy standpoint. And so, had to shut down, start back up, and it kind of was it was an awesome experience. We were able to, grow the startup and become profitable, pay back the initial investment, and, become a profitable little startup off the bat, but really didn't grow and didn't expand fast enough. And it was a great taste. in both sales ops and startups, but it wasn't really operations at that point. So I went back to selling, sold in 2 or 3 different AE positions, and got my start at Canopy about 3 years after that. So at Canopy was an AE, got the chance to be boots on the ground again in a startup, be one of the 4 initial salespeople there. Off the bat, one person, took right off. It wasn't what they were looking for. So there was 3 of us to start, and going in there was very little sales. I think we were below 20,000, and then growing after over a year in selling, we were over $1 million in sales, and that little sales team that had done a lot. We doubled in size. There was 6 AEs, and they had asked me to switch over to sales operations. So didn't know what sales operations was. Come to find out, it's everything that I'm doing now and love. But that was my intro into sales operations, was really having those experiences selling and learning what a salesperson does and is from a daily basis, and really getting a shot in a tech startup to get up and running with my sales operations career.
So why did you choose to move into sales operations versus staying as an AE?
I wanted to affect more quotas than my own. I think sales operations sometimes gets a bad rap because it's somebody who doesn't understand the salespeople, does things on a cadence that they don't like as salespeople, or they're building things. There's requests from salespeople, sales operations builds it, takes it back to the sales team. There wasn't like a feedback loop, and so what they built is subpar or doesn't work. Or there's people who don't understand the selling motions, or they, there's people as well who don't want to handle an individual quota. I think sales or operations, you're able to affect quotas across the whole team. If you can increase everybody's productivity by 5, 10, 15, 20%, that's way more than you doing 100% of your own number. And so just the ability to grow a team, be able to lead that team and help with everybody's overall productivity is really my passion.
Got it. Can we zoom into the role today at SimpleNexus? What's the size of the sales operations function versus the size of the sales function?
So currently I'm a sales operations team of 1. And I also have responsibility into the marketing team with some marketing ops tasks and functions, and then a little bit into the CS side as well. So building that revenue operations brand and function here at SimpleNexus. I like to say that I've got 100% of my time is spent in sales operations, and then 30% of my time is spent in marketing, and 20% of my time is spent in CS. And so, doesn't really fit. But I'm really trying to work out what that looks like long term, and how do we build out a true revenue operations team here over time. So with that said, my goal in sales operations here is to support 2 account managers and they do upsells, 5 account executives, and then various other seats on the bus. So we have a national director of account development. We have a solutions engineer. We have 2 ADMs, and then a few other seats with business development, et cetera. So kind of have small touches on everybody. And then also we're growing the team. So we have an additional few account executives. We're hiring basically in all areas. So by 2020, we should have around 10 plus quota carriers with the ADM team doubling as well. So really looking to build my team and grow my team in 2020. But right now, just trying to lay a good foundation for the AEs that are here and kind of in startup mode still.
Got it. And what's the current tech stack?
So we have moved off of HubSpot. We were using HubSpot Sales, HubSpot Marketing. We're now using Salesforce and Pardot for those sales and marketing functions.
Just out of interest, why did you make that transition?
We were having a lot of data integrity issues. There's just been a few instances where we bit off a lot of data, and that all got into the system over the last year, 2 years, predating even when I was here as well. But it really the deduplication and being able to sort through the data from an account-based level, be able to market to accounts on an enterprise level. I think HubSpot can be a great tool, but I don't know if it's a great tool for an enterprise-only sales team. So we don't have any mid-market. We don't have any SMB. At SimpleNexus, we have 15 of the top 25 largest mortgage lenders as our customers, and we're actually going down market and just continuing to get not just those named accounts, but also the whole enterprise space. So thousands of accounts to sell into, and trying to work through those and be very strategic and work from account-based marketing and then account-based efforts. From enterprise AEs, we're not looking to do high touch, high volume, tons of sequences and just blasting out marketing. We're trying to be very strategic and simplistic in our marketing efforts to give a good, to do mostly branding in that regard, and get us out in front of the specific people we need to at a specific time in a specific way.
And what else in the tech stack?
So we also use Zoom Info that gathers prospects. We have to go very wide and deep in each of our prospects. We may do 10 demos to one account. And so reaching out as wide as we can in an organization is huge. So we use Zoom Info for that. And then we also use Calendly for scheduling. And then we use Drive for phone system, Zoom for demos, and then Adobe Sign for contracting and actually, making the money. So that's kind of, I think, the build out of everything. If I've remembered everything correctly.
Sure. Now shifting to your relationship with the reps, what are you currently doing to make them more productive?
So we've only been in Salesforce without any beta users. We've been for about 3.5 months. And then with beta users, about 2.5 months. And then with everybody in the system, all hands on deck, moving forward, it's been just a little over a month. And so I think the huge thing on my end is making sure that Salesforce is a tool that they can use. And so we're knocking down as many barriers, getting rid of those pinch points, trying to eliminate problems and trying to make it so we can automate as much as possible in their day-to-day and make things more simple. So rolling up my sleeves and really working on the data quality and the day-to-day efforts of what they're doing.
Got it. And then can you share a time where you've had to try and persuade the sales team to do something that may not have been in their direct interest, and how you manage the relationship and how you manage to persuade or influence them?
Yeah, I think I've had a lot of that over the past 3+ years. Kind of my seat on the bus in sales operations is sales operations manager, director of sales operations. Whatever title you have in sales operations, you're truly facilitating. You're trying to get more out of the team. And so I think the important part is to think of yourself as a leader, and not just, the data guy, or not just the back end person on the sales team, but truly like a chief of staff and helping the VP of sales, CSO, whoever you report to or work with as a direct manager. But to really get buy-in from the AEs, ADMs, whomever you have on your team. And so I think one thing I try to do is just really listen. You don't necessarily have a one-on-one with salespeople, but getting the pulse of all of your reps. At Canopy, we grew from that original 3 AEs all the way up to 30 AEs and an overall sales staff of 75, 80 people, and just knowing every single individual, caring about them, helping them as much as they can. And so I think that's where the buy-in comes, is the day-to-day grind. You're grinding, they're grinding. They've got this demanding quota, month in or quarter over quarter, month over month, that they need to hit. And just knowing that, like, if they need something, you're working on it, you're behind it, you're updating them, and you're shadowing them. You're seeing what they're doing. You're seeing their problems. You're trying to fix them. The buy-in is the easy part if you've done all of that groundwork.
Got it. And now shifting into onboarding, you mentioned you're growing sales team, or you're looking to grow the sales team. Do you have like a specific onboarding schedule in place at the moment, or is that something that you'll develop as you bring these people on?
So we've been building an onboarding recently. We have someone who's way more than a solutions engineer here, but they're equal parts, sales onboarding, solution engineer, product expert, working with the product team and building one of our key new releases and features that we're selling on the sales team this year. So they kind of wear a lot of hats. And she, in her role, owns that first week of onboarding. And so first week of onboarding is bringing them here to headquarters. We only actually have one of our account executives here in-house. And where we're located is Lehi, Utah. So with that said, the remainder of our account executives and most of our sales team is actually all over the nation. I think we've got like 9 people all over, and then I think 7 people here between the ADMs, the 1 AE, the 2 account managers, myself, and our CSO. The rest of the team is all over Ohio, California, Arkansas, Missouri, North Carolina, South Carolina. So I think the big thing is with that account-based effort and with reps that are enterprise account executives tenured in our space, they know the mortgage industry, and our onboarding is really getting them to understand SimpleNexus, our value proposition, and how they can leverage their current network and people they've sold to in the past to be able to get up and running here. And so that first week, if they're in Missouri, North Carolina, South Carolina, they come in, they're in-house for that whole first week, and it's, all in. They're learning about the ins and outs of the product, demoing our tech stack, getting them to, set up on systems, and much, much more. And then, various checkpoints in week 2, 3, 4. So that whole first month that they're being helped and guided, and we're polishing this over time and getting better at this, and then truly trying to make it a more scheduled plan moving forward, where specific things happen in week 2 each time, 3, 4, etc. And so that month 2, they're truly starting to hit the ground running and beginning to prospect and work and demo fully in that second month.
Got it. And then can we talk a little bit about the forecasting process? Do you build up the forecast and then share that with the CSO, or what's the process?
Yeah, so the SimpleNexus is a little interesting. They grew for 6 or 7 years before they took on any funding. So I came on board a year ago this month. And they had just taken on their first round of funding, a $20 million round from Insight Venture Partners, to kind of grow the team. I think they were like 45 people at that point. And with that $20 million, they were able to, grow and be able to leave kind of a comfort zone and grow to 110 people, as I mentioned earlier. And so with that said, Insight, we have the access to their sales center of excellence. And I've really learned a lot from what they do and how specifically the commit process and the forecasting process is very detailed in the summits that I've attended and then the work that I've done with their sales center of excellence. And so we've just really taken the data and the information that they've given us in spreadsheets and in scorecards and commit upside pipeline reporting, et cetera. And they've got a cadence that they preach that we've really bought into. So a weekly commit call with the AEs, and none of this is rocket science, but a weekly commit call with the AEs from the manager, one-on-one, talking about each key deal, and then each deal that has even an upside or ought to have, say they have an upside for this quarter. And then I sync up with the managers of each team weekly as well. We have those calls for roughly 45 to 60 minutes of walking through the entire committed upside and net new commits, net new upside, what's slid, what's still there, talking through what slid or what we could pull in from pipeline. And then from there, I take all that data that the manager boiled up to the sales operations team, and then with the CSO as well in that call, we put those all into our reports and get those out to the team. And then we meet weekly with the revenue team, which is the C-level, as well as the finance team, and then the sales management. So we're working through those deals at a high level each week. So all top deals are getting touched weekly, and then we're talking through commit and upside, pipeline, growth week over week. We're talking through the commits and the upside deals that we have for this quarter. And it kind of the cadence that Insight lays out, you start to talk about next quarter as this quarter wraps up, and continue to just focus on the commits for the quarter, and you're building your pipeline and your upside and commit in the beginning of each quarter, and then at the end of each quarter you're looking towards next quarter. So it's a great process that we use and just rinse and repeat week over week with that cadence, and we've really bought into it and it's worked well.
Awesome. And then penultimate question, what is a key sales metric that you've used recently that has been very insightful?
One thing that we've done recently is trying to, as we're going to go double the ADM team and grow that sales support function to just really build pipeline for 2020. We retooled their comp plan and focused them on the KPIs of discovery calls, SALs or ops created by the account executives from those discovery calls set up by ADMs, and then their closed won deals. So we really have focused in on 3 specific KPIs. Everything in their comp plan focuses around those, everything from the AE side and what they need to succeed from that help from an ADM. That's all within those 3 KPIs. And we've really run to that process and tried to build that out on the ADM side. So I would say those are 3 things that we're really focusing on right now.
Got it. So the discoveries, the opportunities from those discoveries, and then closed won from those discoveries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think oftentimes that's a little farther down the pipeline than an ADM looks, but we've really tried to, in that enterprise sale, we've really tried to get the ADM to stay in the sale longer and be driving all the way to close won deals. As I mentioned, there's so many demos that need to happen. What really matters is that solid discovery, many demos, and eventual opportunity and an eventual close won. But there's a lot that has to happen in between there, and the ADM's helping out on a lot of that, trying to drive those KPIs.
Totally makes sense with the complex sale. Awesome. And then final question, who do you know or who have you worked with that's taught you the most about sales operations?
So I worked with originally my VP of sales, who transferred me over to sales operations, and really he got me running, is Ted Farron at Canopy. He brought me on as an account executive there, and gave me a shot in both that account executive role at a young startup, and then in an operations role where, as a sales operations manager, I really didn't know too much about what I was doing. So I had to really learn a ton from him, and learn his, work cadence and inputs from the operational side that he was running for, a year and a half before I started to help with that, and then take that over time.
Shout out to Ted.
Shout out to Ted.
Awesome. So let me just share what I really liked about that conversation. Your rationale for moving to sales operations, I'd never heard before. It's about impact, really. It's about just you doubling your quota in a month versus you enabling 5 AEs to double their quota. I thought that was super interesting. And that's actually a great sales message for sales operations, right? You can come here and impact everybody's quota.
Yeah.
I've written down here, but I can't remember, getting the pulse. Oh, yeah. So when we talk about sales reps, getting the pulse of the sales team, and then the word I really liked was caring, how that's kind of your job, or that's kind of sales operations, that's really having to understand these people and knowing them and caring about them. And that's how you get buy-in. And then finally, how you guys have aligned your metrics to judge the SDR team based on your sales process. So you haven't just taken what the best practice is or what some guru says. You've actually understood that our sales process is like this, and therefore we need to incentivize them all the way to the end, and therefore we'll give them the commission on the close one deal and the opportunity. So those are the things I really liked. Mo, thank you so much for giving us your time today.
Thanks for having me, and love to be on again if you have some more questions.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Sales Ops Demystified podcast. If you are listening on a podcast listening application, then please subscribe, rate, and review. And if you have any questions about the show, if you know a guest, or if you have any questions about sales operations, just hit me up at tomhunt@ebster.com. That's tomhunt@ebster.com.